I'm revisiting the 2020 Prius Prime. Now, if you're Doug DeMuro or one of his loyalists, you're going to splatter yourself over this interior. It's filled with so many quirks and features that if you're a hipster, you are going to see this as one of the most interesting line-caught, farm-to-table type builds you've ever witnessed. This white dashboard is deceivingly strange. It looks like a kitchen tool of some type. The ergonomics are royally jacked up in here because of the center binnacle, or whatever you want to call it. You're constantly looking over here, but thankfully the Limited, compared to the previous version we tested, has a HUD, so you're not so off-center looking all the time. And this center stack area, I don't know what's happening here. In fact, if you would bring this to CES, you'd get laughed off the showroom floor, because Toyota's infotainment hasn't ever been cutting edge. In technology, usability, it's been very industrial. So what they've done is they've taken all of that and they've made the screen about 10 times larger, and it amplifies all the negativities of it. The resolution's not good, the contrast ratio is bad, the color detail's not good, and the usability is just so mind-bogglingly disappointing. They've removed your HVAC controls from the physical realm, which is something Toyota has historically done amazing. Now you have to use the touchscreen for it. So opt for the lower trim level. I'm telling you that right now. There's a lot of piano gloss in here. Unlike the white Tupperware that we had before, now we have black shiny stuff. You have a wireless charging pad, however, which seems to work pretty well. And you now have 3 seats in the back instead of 2, so you can pack more people in. Now let's get to the comfort. The seats on this upper trim level, I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to go with eco fabric that is supposed to be leather or feel like leather, and it feels like a mass transportation seat. It reminds me of a school bus seat from when I was like 3 years old, because I started driving at 5 and I couldn't be bothered with that peasant form of transportation. Now, other than the seats, the back seat, the only other thing to talk about is comfort. The back seat space is really good, even compared to the Corolla. You can move these seats back and you can be tall and still fit behind. The trunk area, however, is compromised because of the lithium-ion pack that's in the Prime. So you lose load floor depth. It's a much higher load floor. And the last thing to say, the styling. Just look at it. Give it one strong look. Look it right in the eye. See how you feel about it. And while you're pondering that, let's head into the shop and talk about the mechanical attributes. Underneath the Prius Prime, my previous video I had this jacked up in my garage because I didn't have the lift installed yet, so it's nice to see this in all its glory. So what do you want to know? In short, there's a few things they've improved. The battery longevity warranty is up to 10 years, and this carries an 88 kilowatt hour lithium ion pack. No nickel metal hydride here. And of course, this is the plug-in version, which is good up to about 25 miles at 85 miles an hour. So if you're just going around town, you can almost use this in pure EV mode. It takes about 5.5 hours to charge it with a regular outlet, and then down to about 2 with a 240 volt charger. Now, what you see here is what we see in like the Corolla. This is almost identical underneath. It shares the same architecture. The difference is this is a far more slippery car, and that's partially why it looks weird. It has a 0.25 coefficient of drag, which helps to reduce or helps improve fuel economy. You also see something very rare, 15-inch wheels and tires with low rolling resistance rubber. Now, this is also why this car rides a little bit better. And, you know, this is something that's disappeared off all normal cars. Like, one of my new vehicles has 22-inch wheels and tires, and I absolutely hate it because it rides like crap. So if you favor more of a squishy sidewall and cheaper tire replacement cost, this is here. But let's take a look at the back. In the back of the Prime, this is a multi-link rear end, and this is one of the reasons why this new generation Prius rides better than all the previous generations. It handles better, it's more composed, but the thing you don't see on the Prius Prime here is there is no e-all-wheel drive option. An e-all-wheel drive is only available on the standard Prius, not the plug-in. That adds an electric motor in the back that does not have a mechanical linkage from the front to the back, and it can send power just sporadically when it detects traction loss in the front. And that's helpful for people that want to drive a car all year round in inclement weather. Otherwise, you're never going to notice it here. Now, the last thing to talk about is the engine, and the engine is only about 100 horsepower. With the combined output of the electric motor, it's about 120 horsepower. And like I talked about in the previous video, before they couldn't use MG1, which is motor generator unit 1, to create additional power. Now MG1, the 2 motor generator units, can combine to give you extra output. So all that means is it feels a little bit more powerful than it used to. But we're going to talk about that on the drive. Let's get out on the road and see how it is. You know, Jack, what I like to do, I like to save fuel.
Let me put this into eco mode for you.
Are we going to save fuel?
We're going to save a lot of fuel, Mark. I'm Frugal McDougal. Let's do this. Oh, 122 horsepower.
Nah, it really didn't get thrown back in my seat.
Oh, Mark, it's... The reason I'm excited is because of my free-range, fair trade, farm-to-table leather seats, Mark. That's what gets me excited. And the fact that I can get 60 miles per gallon.
What are you getting, though?
47.1, but I'm also an asshole, so there's that.
How many times have you charged this?
Never.
So basically, you've been driving this like a hybrid.
Yeah, and honestly, if you get past the way this thing looks, both on the inside and the outside, and the fact that this car should no longer have a stigma because all of these smug, I'm better than you owners are now in Model 3s and Model S's, this is actually a really good daily driver with zero cool factor.
So I'm going to tell you something.
All right.
You've completely missed the boat on driving this since you're not using it as it's prescribed to be used. The whole point of the Prius Prime is to charge it and use it in EV mode, which is where this car goes from a normal Prius into what feels like a very good EV. So you've lost out a lot of the experience here. So if you get to drive this plugged in once, definitely do it. So there are some cool things about this. It is completely unique, and I know that people will look at it and scoff. Like you have. You don't like the way it looks at all. You hate it, in fact.
Yeah, to me it's a pretty big deal breaker.
And I get why. This is not trying to be like what they did with the Honda Insight or Honda Clarity or the Ioniq or those types of cars where they're so afraid of designing something that's a little outside of the box that it's going to hurt sales. I think Toyota was not afraid of that here.
They're not. No, they're definitely not shy with the way this thing looks. But here's my point, Mark. Hybrids are in everything. You get a hybrid Accord, Camry. Hybrids don't have to look ugly anymore. Why is this car?
Because now we've gone to the other extreme where hybrids are completely normalized.
Yeah.
Where they have no, you can't tell them aside from their naturally or internal combustion counterparts. And I like this because now this is the outlier. Now, if you want a plug-in hybrid, you get the RAV4 Prime. I think that vehicle is going to be so wildly popular because it takes everything that's in here, puts it in the raised up, same architecture as this.
The Karenmobile body.
The Karenmobile body. This is nothing like the old Prius in terms of drivability. It's more solid. It rides better. It doesn't crash over every pavement type. It's smooth.
No, objectively, you're
floaty.
100% right. This car, on paper, the way you drive it, if you strip away all of the issues that I have with the Prius that I've already mentioned, this is a really good daily driver. It gets crazy good gas mileage. With its 15-inch wheels and tires, it rides really, really well. It's quiet. The cabin's very usable. There are a lot of positives. The steering is very direct, and given its mission, it handles very, very well.
So what's the problem with it then?
To me, if you're going to be driving a car that's between $30,000 and $35,000, right, depending on what options you have to enjoy driving it, to me, right? I'm not at that point in my life where I'm just looking for an appliance, and this is what it feels like. It feels like a washing machine. But if that's what you're going for, this car's brilliant.
I don't agree with you, but...
What do you disagree with me on, Mark?
I don't feel like people buy this. You're not buying this because you want excitement.
Well, that's what I mean. It's an appliance.
Yeah, but still, even there's plenty of appliances out there beside this. So why would somebody choose this over another appliance?
To me, you're buying this because you don't have to fill it up. It rides well and it looks unique. But I don't really care about the looks part. And the cost difference, you're paying, in this car's case, it's $35,000.
Yes.
It's 15 grand more than a Honda Civic Sport hatchback, which is every bit as practical, and that car gets 40 miles per gallon. How many years do you have to drive this thing to amortize the $15,000 or $10,000 price difference?
Is it $15,000 better than a Civic? No. Even with the cost difference between not filling it up as much and just plugging it in.
And they're every bit as ugly. You can't give me the
no,
looks.
Yeah, well, forget about the looks. I'm talking about drivability and mechanics and all that. The time has evolved since the original Prius has come around, and I feel like this is far less relevant than it was in the past. People don't care as much about fuel economy. This is going to be, in most part, a California market car where they are wildly popular still. I think, like I brought up the RAV4, that is the next generation of this. All the foundation is good here to make a bigger vehicle like the selling king over the Prius. The Prius's time has moved on, but it also does not have as big of a douchebag factor and smugness factor that it used to.
Oh, those guys are all in, I'm
yeah,
better
right,
than you. They're all in the Model S and Model 3,
yeah. So I think that's a good time to bring this into the shop for the final thoughts.
All right.
Final thoughts on the Prius Prime. Much like the original video, I still think this is a great product. It's evolved to the point that it is a staple in society. It was one of the first hybrids, it's the longest standing hybrid, and it is also one of the most reliable and technically proficient. With the added warranty on the battery pack and some of the components, it makes sense that you can buy this with a lot of confidence, and that's something that I bring up a lot in the modern age of cars and the new wave of EVs. We don't have a good track record in terms of reliability on a lot of these new products and technology. This is now less of an issue. It has been a non-issue for a long time, unless you totally abuse the thing and don't take care of it. So that's a huge selling point. The negative parts are this limited trim, you're throwing away a lot of money on certain things that are not the greatest. The seats, for one, don't breathe all that well. The infotainment, paying for the larger screen, is netting you zilch, absolutely zilch. So you're better off going to one of the lower trim levels, like the lower trim level that I talked about previously. You're going to save a lot of money, and it breaks up the gap between what you would get on an economy 4-cylinder car without hybridization versus this, and it makes more practical sense. If you don't need an SUV, you need an appliance to go from A to B, and you don't want to dump a ton of fuel or run mostly in EV mode, that's why the Prius Prime is amazing. You just have to get over what the outer shell looks like, and if you can look past that, well, you got a bigger heart than I do. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.